This is one of the first webinar series of ISA Delft. The topic is best practices for job internship opportunities in the Dutch labor market, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. My name is Avin Shanbhag, and I will be the presenter of this whole webinar. Along with me, Pranay is another colleague of mine, also an alumnus, and he also has contributed to this webinar. I believe we will start right now, and we can also expect other participants to join later. A couple of ground rules. We like to make sure that your microphone is muted until the end of the session. Also, please make sure that you park your doubts during the Q&A. This is quite critical because there are a lot of participants in this webinar. During the webinar, also, please frame your questions in your notepad. So during the Q&A session, we can expect you to copy-paste those questions into the chat box. Also, all the slides which are there have a heavy content, so a copy of this presentation will be made available. Of course, copyright to ISA Delft, because this is quite an important document as well. Yes, I like to invite Aditya to speak a few words on the ISA boards and its initiatives for this financial year.
Good evening, all of you. So, hold on, I'm just, yeah. Good evening, all of you. So, as of now, during these uncertain times, as ISA, we are there here to support all of you in whatever respect it is. So as of now, what we're doing is currently ISA is working at three particular fronts. The first front being that we are speaking to the embassy, the executive board, and things around other formal institutions in order to figure out how we can help our community to grow better, and especially how we can get support during this time. So we have been writing letters to the embassy in order to help us through during these times, especially all the financial concerns, study progress, and the visa concerns. So that's being taken care of. So we are writing issue-specific letters based on different issues which were raised before, and we are doing that as well. And the second being is we are trying to come up with new events which are online as of best practices as well, in order to engage the community as well. So be sure that you participate in some of these events. It's good to clear the blues out. Like we have a Pictionary night coming up this Saturday. I think that's a great event to participate in. And furthermore, we have 4 other events that are coming up very soon. So be sure that you keep following the ISA Instagram page, and most of our updates also come through the ISA Instagram page with respect to the whole COVID-19 developments. So we try to repost all the updates from TU Delft, from the embassy on our Instagram page. So we are trying to ensure that we are spreading that message through WhatsApp as well. But then, yeah, so keep following the Instagram page to get more updates. And we are even focusing on the incoming students in order to make sure that they have a smooth onboarding. So we just wanted to make sure that you feel free to come to us with any concerns, with any problems of any sorts. Feel free to contact us. We're there for you over here. And please let us know of any problems you have. We can try to figure out a solution for that. Else we can at least direct you to the right people who can help you find a solution. Stay safe at home and keep washing your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya, for that. I'll move forward. And ISA board is doing a quite good job compared to all the student associations during this pandemic time. But yeah, thanks to all the board members currently present here. We will proceed with my introduction. Again, like I said, my name is Avin Shanbhag. I'm a procurement engineering manager at Royal Philips, a leading health technology company which provides integrated solutions to improve lives of people. I'm also alumni advisor to the ISA Delft board. Currently, I am also advising other organizations. But apart from that, I defended my thesis and graduated from TU Delft last year in management of technology. And I'm also a mechanical engineer myself. Perhaps Sai can introduce himself as well.
Yep. Hi, guys. Sai here. I think a few of you already know me, but let me introduce myself for most of us. I'm Sai. I'm right now working as a project planner at Houseman Equipment. Like Avin told, I work along with Avin as alumni advisor at ISA for this year, 2019-20. And before that, I graduated at TU Delft, did my thesis at Floor from the program Construction Management and Engineering. And also something more coincidental is that I also graduated from CEG. Avin and me, we actually came from the same college. It's nice to share the screen with him. Good luck, Avin, and I think it'll be a fun session.
Thanks, Sai. Thanks a lot, Sai.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So we'll focus on why this webinar is actually conducted. Briefly, I will give you three aspects as to why this is done. The first is obviously job and internship opportunities. We would like you to understand quickly the opportunities in the Dutch market. And we also would like you to understand the power of online and offline networks. We'll focus on job applications as such with CVs and motivation letters. We will provide you a small brief training on articulating your CV or resume, and of course, finding your right motivation as such. We'll also discuss a bit on the interview part as to how recruiters in the Netherlands really look for, and we will give you a small tool on how you can storytell your profile, and of course, showcase the various attributes and behaviors which are needed. Apart from this, we will also have a systematic discussion. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll also do some reflection with the peers and participants, and of course, share some experiences from our own on our experiences. These are the first topics, the job and internship opportunities. So 4 subtopics would be discussed right now, and I'll just jump forward to it. Understanding the Dutch labor market is quite important before you actually apply for a job or internship. This is absolutely critical because there are 3 major types of employers you can really work for. These are multinational companies, which account for usually about 20% of the private sector. You have also small and medium scale enterprises, which is the largest constituent of the economy, which is around 70% of the private sector. And of course, you have academic institutions where a lot of PhDs and academic researchers work. If you look in contrast, most of the internationals are employed by the multinational companies. Almost all of the multinational companies employ internationals. In this presentation, which will be forwarded to you, you can see a list of companies in the Netherlands who actually do this. And of course, there are multiple traineeships for freshers in the respective job portals where a lot of freshers from TU Delft can apply for. Of course, the sources of jobs are multiple websites, which we'll get into specifically. But apart from that, you also have that 1 in 80 employees in small and medium scale enterprises also employ internationals. A lot of the students do forget that even small and medium scale enterprises do need highly skilled talent workforce, and therefore that is a specific area. Another great platform for TU Delft MSc graduates are academic institutions. There are 4 technical and 10 normal universities in the Netherlands. All of them are world ranked. And of course, they are also a great employer because in terms of the compensation and the perks and benefits you get, they are more or less the same equal status. I'd like to give a small brief highlights, the key highlights which are positive. And there's always a huge demand for young engineers in the market. Of course, due to the aging workforce in the market, you always have this gap of talent required for highly skilled engineers. Expats with international experience are also highly valued, and given the status that it's a very stable work contract in the Netherlands for university graduates, the job satisfaction is higher due to fixed working hours. You also have the option after graduating to apply for the zoekjaar, which is the 1-year search visa. This is basically gives you free access to the Dutch labor market to do internships, to also search for jobs living in the Netherlands. And also, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can also do the same as well. Some of the lowlights are basically in the hiring process. This is not as compared to other countries. The hiring process is on average is around 2 to 3 months, give or take, which means the day when you apply for the job and you get it confirmed with your visa, it takes around 2 to 3 months on average. Of course, there are higher taxes. On minimum, you pay around 38% tax, which is so much more higher than the Indian taxes your parents might have been paying for. But the benefits are quite there if you stay here in the Netherlands long term, given the access to healthcare, infrastructure, road, and of course, if you want to have children, you can also, the education is quite covered there. Two major economic think tanks, the International Monetary Fund and also the Dutch macroeconomic think tank, both have actually forecasted a negative growth within the Dutch labor market. This is indeed a challenge, but of course, we can make sure that we obviously overcome that specific aspect. And the question is, how do we overcome that? And this is why this webinar is very important, so that you do not make the same mistakes as other people do. And by that, you cut short a lot of time to find your right opportunity. And of course, we'd like to focus more on the power of online job boards and our alumni. Almost all employee and employer matches is online. They are basically available in 4 major cities in the Netherlands, where about 94% of the alumni work there. It's always good to reach out to alumni and study their profiles online. And how do you study your profiles? If you see the job market, even the Dutch market, the job boards in the Dutch market, you always see that Indeed is the great platform where around 54% of all the graduates use that platform to find a job. But of course, for highly skilled jobs, white-collar jobs, for bachelor's, master's, and PhD level graduates, LinkedIn is supposed to be the best platform to narrow down to your opportunities to do that. In this specific visualization, you can see how alumni of TU Delft are scattered across the country. So you have around 100,000 alumni, out of which 80% of them work in the Netherlands. You also see that most of the concentration is in the Den Haag area. And of course, you can always explore other areas as well, where a lot of alumni are also there. With this presentation, and of course, after the webinar, you'll also get an Excel sheet as to where you have the top 15 companies for all faculties of TU Delft, where they are collected. And of course, you can filter your jobs based on those specific aspects. Of course, building your own network and exploring is highly critical in this process. This is super critical because end of the day, there is no set procedure. There are only guiding principles where you as the Delft engineer will look for various opportunities and the market perceives you as specifically this. You have, obviously, these are the various attributes of a Delft engineer of how the industry perceives you. And of course, via online mediums and TU Delft, you can always have various opportunities to look for. Of course, when you broaden your circle, you have a lot of more opportunities, such as all these specific aspects, from company days to lunch lectures, to business days, to career fairs, to even professional events as such. But of all the opportunities you can get, you can specifically classify them into 2. One is on campus. Your immediate seniors are your most valuable connections. And I say this because they usually reflect the current market status. So it is always a good practice to ask them objective questions and make judgment. And of course, keep connections for future referrals as well. There also will be other sources of information are your professors and PhD candidates. So connection to the industries are ideally present. So do not take it for granted that they don't have any connections. Of course, the university and the student clubs are a good source. But apart from that, you also have a great event on campus on annual basis called the Delftse Bedrijvendagen. It happens usually every year on the February. And it's a great event to understand the market and great to understand the companies that are interested in TU Delft engineers. But of course, the recruitment always happens through a standard way of platform. Off campus, LinkedIn is your best bet. We believe that your connection of employees is highly critical because you can network with them and ask subjective questions. And of course, you can always post interesting assignments online to make sure that the world knows you as to what you're doing. End of the day, the recruiters will obviously do a background check on you, be it your Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and any other online platform to have a good background check before they recruit you. So you might as well put as much information as which contributes to your job. Always take every opportunity to network. Network, network, network. That is super critical because it's not just about you networking for your opportunities, but of course, in general, you learn a lot from other people as well. So before we step on to the next, it is highly critical that you cut short your time amidst this COVID-19 crisis. And what we have done is we have built you a specific tool for the right opportunities. Obviously, you have to look first as how you want to do this opportunity filtering. And that's why we have built this specific funnel. We have to filter by industries and sectors, which is highly critical. And of course, you can see this is the stage of knowledge gathering. In this stage, you have a lot of information from various avenues. You have a lot of information online, especially. And then in this specific aspect, you can always refer online profiles with your similar backgrounds and choose specific industries which can be translatable across various domains. This is highly critical because if you don't like a specific industry and you want to work there, it's something which you will not like in the short term. So you can also choose sectors which are growing and promising. Of course, you can choose cities based on your personal preference. And of course, in consultation of your alumni and also your immediate seniors, your online job portals are also very handy in that. Always tap in your alumni network for questions because they're always ready to give you advice. Of course, the next step would be the personal assessments. So where you can really look at LinkedIn and Indeed as a platform where people are there and have a similar profiles, and of course, make sure what made them go into the market and what really was able to sell. So you can choose companies which internationals are higher. The probability is much higher that you would land there. You can always choose a job that fits your profile. It's always good to explore current and similar employees. And despite that, if your gut says go for it, just go for it. So you filter your companies and you also filter the types of jobs you require by this stage. After this stage, all your connections kind of are good, but here is when your job application stage starts, where you have your company portal. They also specifically showcase what are the jobs you actually have. And this is where you have to apply for a job because all the other platforms are gone. And you always have to give your motivation as to why this company, why this job, and why you. And of course, on average, on a weekly basis, we highly recommend you to apply for 5 to 10 jobs alone. This does not work. You might have colleagues or friends in the US where they applied 100 jobs per week. That clearly does not work here because you have to really have absolute clarity as to why you are applying for this job. A typical guideline on a Pareto principle is where 80% of your CV is fixed and 20% of your CV is basically as per your job description. So make sure that you do your mandatory homework, read online material as much as you can from like an exam. It could be that you have a lot of online material on websites, on YouTube channels, on Instagram. And of course, you always can seek your support from your friends and other peers or your well-wishers to make sure that they can help you in this stage. Apply as early as possible because most of the companies do have a rolling admission basis. So within the same week, and we can also give you some tips on how to do that. And of course, once you go for on a weekly basis, you will have around 1 to 2 jobs for an interview and not more than that. This is the pattern we see. And of course, once you clear your interview, you have your work contract, you're happy. And of course, you always have other aspects of the job, such as salary and title, and of course, understanding taxes of how taxes work in the Netherlands, and of course, other perks and benefits. It is absolutely critical in this funnel that you always keep the applications flowing during the interview stages. A lot of people make a mistake of just going an interview and having too much hopes and expectations on that 1 or 2 interviews that week. Do not do that and keep the applications flowing even during the interview stages. And that's how you really make sure that you are lean and you cut short a lot of waste time. Your job applications with CVs and motivation letters. We have specifically three broad topics where we would like to focus on, and these are the three topics. For your resume and your CV, it is both more or less the same. A CV is basically a 2-page or 3-page, but your resume is a 1-page. Most of the companies require you to produce a CV because it's a bit more elaborative for freshers. How to create a professional CV without job experience. This is absolute critical. People who have job experience are at a bit of a better advantage, but how can you make sure as a fresher you can make an absolute nice CV? You have to write a very powerful personal statement. What do I mean by that? You need to have a 75-word elevator pitch. It should encompass your past. What have you done? Are you an experienced engineer, or are you an experienced design engineer, or are you currently a board member of an organization? Or what is your past in general? And you should talk about your present. Are you currently doing anything specifically to, again, as a board member, or as you are an intern in an organization, or are you researching on your thesis on a specific topic, or perhaps you are doing some other specific activity which would catch the eye? And of course, the most important part is, what is your future? What do you would like to do in the future? Are you interested in specific roles which are very matching to the company's organization description or to the job description? This is absolutely critical because this is the first thing which every recruiter or hiring manager looks at. So make sure to get that very right. Of course, you have to use your right layout and logical structure. There are basically multiple layouts, but this is the broad layout on your personal details, your elevator pitch, which is what I described earlier, your education, your work experience, your skills, which are either technical or soft skills. Of course, you can always have your co-curriculars and extracurriculars, which are highly valued in the Dutch market, and your academic projects and internships. They are also the second highly valued in the Dutch market. And of course, you can finish off with your hobbies, because always recruiters like to know a bit more about you. You can also always digitalize it and beautify it, but there is obviously a lot of work behind it. So make sure that you keep it simple and straight to the point. Tailor your CV. Do not forget, like I mentioned earlier, your personal statement should align with the role, because roles are quite different from organizations to sectors to industries. So please make sure to tailor your CV with your relevant skills and experience and academic subjects. Keep your CV error-free. This is absolutely critical. It is a complete turn-off. Even myself, when I look at CVs which come for my internship roles in my company, people make mistakes in their typing. That is absolutely critical. You do not make sure you make sure that you do not make any mistakes in that. So keep your CV updated, proofread it multiple times, and when you take a printout of your CV, make sure that you can take a pen and draw a line from your skill to that specific internship or project experience or work experience, where you can really claim that this is a skill I have got from that specific activity. And this is super critical because we have a lot of claims from a lot of people because it's easy to write on the CV. But if you're not proven it through projects or experience or other avenues, it is really something which you might we might call it as a bluff. So make sure that you do that. However, if you look at writing the CVs, in whichever format you have, content is critical. Content is king, and transforming your CV into a very powerful story is very important. You can write your achievements in a very effective way, and this is something a lot of executives use in the Dutch labor market and also internationally. It's called the CAR. It stands for it stands for three abbreviations. So the C stands for challenge. So think about a challenge, a problem, an obstacle in your research study or your industry sector or an organization that you're working on, and make sure you aptly write that. You have to clearly put an action for that. So is it an action which you took, or your team member took it, or as a team you took it together to resolve it? And what new skills did you utilize and develop? This is also very important to showcase what skills you had. And you can always use action verbs where you can always show what are these other, to make sure that you have done this from your own aspect. The results part is quite clear. You have to quantify what you have done. Underlining outcomes via various quantifiable results is absolutely critical, because You can always say end times, you can always use percentage, you can always use some kind of benchmark. If you always measure contribution, the HR and the hiring manager sees that this is a result-oriented person. End of the day, we want results as an employee for an organization. So make sure to not use pronouns, personal pronouns or articles. This is also not very relevant to that specific result. We can give a few examples which you can dive in. Instead of using, if you work on a project ABC, you can always write in this fashion, where you can always showcase that you have elaboratively put, you have researched and you have studied and you have looked at the impact. This is what it has resulted in. You have analyzed some system and then you have increased this much percentage of improvement. And similar examples have been put in this presentation for your internship and your work experience as well. So you can always have a look at back how we have encapsulated, giving you an example as a template. And you can always see for your own specific project, internship, and work experience, how you can use the CAR model. And appropriately, you yourself can judge on a daily basis if you have actually written it clearly as much as you can. So this is content as king is very important. We can move on to a motivation letter on a brief topic. Obviously, there are three aspects. The first aspect would be why this specific company. Why are you writing this letter to this company? Why do you want to go to this company and work? This will be the first question they will have in mind as a recruiter or a hiring manager. Why this specific job? Why are you interested in working for this specific role? Are you going to contribute in some way? Do you think this is some job, this is your passion? Do you think this job description really has something which you can really mirage with your experience? Why this job? Ask yourself. The third question is why you? Why do I have to recruit you? What relevant skills, experience, or any other kind of practices which you have, you can offer to this job, and of course to the company's future. Because anyways, if they're investing you as an employee, they are investing in the company's future. So why you? So after this, you always have to conclude for call for action. What are you going to do? Are you going to ask them to get back to us? Or are you going to ask them to do something specifically? What are you going to do on that? So these are the three major aspects. And of course, you can always conclude a motivation letter in this. Each of these have usually 3 to 4 lines. Do not keep more than that because it becomes insanely tough for a HR manager or a recruiting manager to read it. This of course have 1-2 lines, and there are some do's and don'ts which you can always use. Use a personal tone. It's always good to be always precise and concise. It's always stimulate curiosity, because curiosity is what makes human beings really think about. Proofread, which is said by Dunn. Do not make any unsupported claims. It's always good that do not make any big bluffs in the motivation letter as well. Like for example, I always my dream was to become an engineer since childhood is such a cliche statement, and that's something which almost all engineers use. So please don't use that. Reusing CV info is a major mistake a lot of people do. That's where the artistic element comes from an engineer, where he or she has to really make sure the motivation letter is not specifically taken care of. You do not use vague words also, and that's also absolutely important. Now, suppose if you're a Delft engineer, you're looking for opportunities, you have no work experience. What is this job board you're talking about? Let's go and do a live demo as such. So you have a specific job. This is your job portal of LinkedIn. And suppose you are a systems engineer and you're looking for a lot of opportunities. You can always search in a specific area as to where you really want to look for opportunities as such in your LinkedIn platform. And suppose I give the Randstad area. The Randstad area is basically 4 cities in the Netherlands, and you can always do a search there. And some tips and tricks are something like you want to look at as a system engineer and keep the guiding principle of the various opportunities you get. And of course, you can go by one and you can look at, but the major aspect is that if you sort by the most recent, where a job opportunity has been freshly posted, and you tend to make sure you apply for the specific job, you can always make sure that you can always go to that. You can always look by internship levels and a lot of other filters which LinkedIn offers. You can do the same exact opposite. And of course, if you do not know Dutch, it is always good to just neglect such job opportunities and always look at. And suppose you want to really look, make sure that opportunities should be coming to you. Make sure that you can always have a job alert on a daily basis on an email. And after the end of your working day, you will get an email from that specific job alert. What are the opportunities? And you can always constantly see when an opportunity is posted, you can immediately apply for. There are other multiple aspects of using LinkedIn. You always have the school page where your alumni, when you have a specific job description and a job opportunity, you can always look the alumni, and always you can look at the various people who work in specific companies. For example, if I take Shell, and if you're looking at a specific engineer as a process engineer, you can always look at people in that specific opportunity. You have 345 alumni, and it makes a lot of more sense to connect with such people because mostly they would probably help you in getting more opportunities and understand a bit more better on your aspect. You always also have the Delft alumni group where you can directly message people without actually connecting to them. And this is a great tool where you can just look at the if you have name of the person. Jan is a very common Dutch name, and I click enter, you get a lot of Jans, and you can always message them directly without making sure that you can need to connect to them. For example, Jan Skelling is the Chief Human Resource Officer. If you have something very important, you can say, you can pitch to this HR officer. That's absolutely fantastic. And if he or she is impressed by your work and, of course, the medium you approach, why not? He will obviously look at opportunities in this big multinational company, Royal IHC. And so the LinkedIn offers a great platform. Please utilize it. And of course, it's said and done that it is quite easy to understand, but it's very hard to do. So make sure that you always look at those opportunities as such. Okay, so we'll focus on right now on the last topic before we go for the Q&A session is basically the mindset of a HR or a hiring manager. These are the two key aspects. And of course, we'll talk a bit about contracts and salaries and what is your market value. End of the day, you are going to do a job for money because you have to live and you have to make a living. And of course, personal advice on what if things do not go as you planned. This is very important because a lot of people face rejections when they apply for a job, especially if they haven't given their cum laude student or a honors program student. They have to deal with failures, and this is very important because we give you a self-help thinking principle from a lot of good author. Inside a HR mind, you are here, you have a hiring manager and you have a HR resource manager. Multiple rounds of interviews are always there for any job. This is critical that the hiring manager and the HR or it's combined. Usually it is a HR manager taking up the interview, followed by the hiring manager. And then you have a team interview perhaps. It very depends upon the organization and what kind of role you're applying for. But of course, we can give you a key principle is the preparation is absolutely key, which is obviously known. But of course, how do you how do you basically prepare is something which you can always look at a lot of online mediums. In every of these presentations, in the notes section, we have provided you a lot of links from major recruiters, and you can always have a look as to what they actually expect, and there are some guidelines. We cannot populate this in the specific slide due to the time and of course the space in this slide, but you can always refer back to that and you can see what is needed. We offer you two tools that you can help in usual challenges faced by Delft engineers. The one is specifically unable to understand the specific opportunities to focus. So make sure that before and after the interview you do this. Before the interview, because it's absolutely critical why you want to go spend your time, energy, and effort going to the company's place and giving them an interview. And of course, after the interview, despite having not got through the job, it's also very good to utilize this. And this is basically the SWOT analysis, which is famous. Your strengths, think about your positives, selling points, think about your weaknesses, the most delicate, showcase awareness and acknowledge how you plan to convert them into strengths. Your opportunities, what are your opportunities, which basically is your CV and your motivation married together, and your threats. Make sure that you understand what are the negative externalities to overcome time management or perhaps upgrading skills. This is absolutely critical. I have done this myself, and a lot of people have done this, and it really helps a lot to really reflect and see what you can do. During the interview, a lot of people say a lot of things, a lot of flow of rambling, a lot of nervousness, a lot of speaking negatively sometimes. This is a common behavior we see. We use a specific STAR model, which is basically situation. So you explain the situation, what you are. T stands for task, which what is the specific task you have done. And of course, do action what you have done. So what is the action you have done to that specific task? And of course, showcase the result. And we are giving you an example of what you can say in general if you're internship in a specific company. So these are the two models we recommend. And yeah, there are a lot of other guiding principles, but most common you have to understand that the Dutch are basically direct. They're very direct to the point. There's no flamboyant thinking like the Americans or the Indians, where we have a lot of gizmo and bimbo. The Dutch do not do that. They're very direct. They are very to the point. They also expect a non-hierarchical management structure. So basically, everybody is equal because there's an egalitarian society. At the same time, all are equal in general, although you will have a manager. It's also called Pol de Molde. So they have a lot of meetings to reach a consensus because everybody respects their time. So meetings are very, very well organized. So it's always good if they give you scenarios, what you want to do. These are some fun facts which we can make you understand about the Dutch culture. After all, you are going to work for a Dutch company. At the end of the day, you are going to they will test you on every aspect if you are fit for the organization in that way. We'll move forward to your specific contracts. Almost all fresh graduates from the university get temporary contracts. These are one-year contracts. These are one-year contracts where you have multiple opportunities to go into a newer, better contract. But on overall, if you want to look at the number of contracts, you have majorly three types of contracts. One is a temporary labor contract, one is a permanent contract, and the other one is a recruitment agency contract. Temporary, by its name, it's a 6 months to 1 year. It's very common for university grads. It's only applicable for 2 years until. And if the same continues, it has to be converted to a permanent contract. A permanent contract is indeterminate period. It's very hard to terminate. The laws in the Netherlands is very strict that people cannot be laid off easily, just as other capitalistic countries can do so. You can always fight it in court, except when the company is restructuring because of business issues, or if a poor performance is shown by the business or by you itself, and of course by disciplinary issues, which could be very irrelevant most of the time. Recruitment agencies also would be a legal employer. They're also a good starting point, despite also they are also temporary contracts. There are a lot of information about this. I don't want to deal with it completely, but there are a lot of links which are here for you in terms of the contract, what needs to be done, and the working hours, the pay slips, and of course, what if there are some conflicts which happen. This is obviously good to know, especially after your interview, when you crack your interview, and this is something which you cannot go back after you have accepted the offer. It's always good to know beforehand. The most important part of this presentation is, of course, how much money do you make as an engineer? We have reached a consensus that an average master's graduate gets around 38,000 euros per year. This is including the holiday allowances included, and of course, the cost to the social security. The tax.nl is the website which you can calculate your gross. From your gross income, you can get your net income of how much you have to pay. Usually for 30,000 euros, you get around 2,300 euros of monthly net income. This is quite important if you want to negotiate, if you want a higher income, you obviously aim for a higher gross income. And of course, you can always calculate what is your monthly net income. So a lot of people, Indian students, have educational loans. So please make sure that you can always negotiate with that, and of course, go with specifically what you like. And how do you know this market value? What is your value in the market? is very hard to judge in a new market, especially if you have work experience. So basically, there are multiple websites. The most credible online source is Glassdoor, which really gives you a lot of insights on one specific job title and that specific company. What is the specific salary you will have? Of course, you have immediate seniors who can willfully share. It's great if you get information from that. But if not, Glassdoor is a fantastic website. But for you, as a fresh graduate, for higher salaries, there are always abundant opportunities to grow financially and professionally later on. The key is to land up with the right job in the market. And later, once you get in the market, job hopping is quite easy. Once you have 1 2 years of experience, you can always move on to a bigger company, a better company to negotiate your salary. Remember, you always have to remember that highly skilled engineers are always wanted in the market. This is very important because a lot of people forget that they are not wanted in the market. They always need you in the market because a lot of Dutch students do not take technical studies, especially in research universities like TU Delft, given it's a rigorous program and it's also the hard work we have to put into. What if things don't go as you plan? This is a bit of important because a lot of people do undergo a lot of failures when you apply for jobs, and it's quite relevant that you obviously think about this. Um, Obviously, use a specific model. You always have goals. You always have clear goals to make sure that you prioritize which industries, sectors, and job types fit you the best. Make sure to have flexibility. If you do not have flexibility and self accountability throughout it, it's quite a bit hard to get into the market uh, vehemently. Make sure to deal well with your setbacks, how to move forward. Uh, a common principle is pain plus reflection is progress. Yes, it hurts when you get a reject from an interview. Yes, it rejects. You get hurt when you get a reject uh, from the employer immediately after you send your CV. It hurts a lot. It hurt me as well. And everybody as humans you hurt. But it's also a moment for reflecting why this is specifically not a job for you. So make sure you have clear goals in specifically which job you want to specifically apply for. Identify problems. Do not tolerate problems. Painful problems are potential improvements. Do not just do not avoid confronting unpleasant problems because uh, you have to make sure that you understand and identify what is the problem. Is it a skill lag, or is it something you don't understand about the company, or is it something you don't have a passion for, a specific job type? You have to see what is that specific problem. And once you identify a problem, do not tolerate it because that specific problem needs to have a specific cause as to why that is happening. And once, make sure that you don't combine it together. When you diagnose your problem with various root causes, make sure that you have proximate causes from the root causes. This is also important because a lot of people think that uh, symptoms and problems are the same, but not. It is not the same. You design a plan. Make sure you have a specific plan. There are multiple paths to achieving to going to Rome. If you think that you are only one way, there are multiple other ways you can look like. It's always good to think about a plan like a movie script. You always visualize what you do through time, and you can always write down to see what you have gone through and what you have measured. Recognize it does not take a lot of time to design a good plan. Good plans are very easy to make, and of course, it's easy. And the hardest part is doing, pushing through completion. Great planners who do not execute their plans go nowhere because it's end of the day it's just a plan. Good work habits are vastly underrated, and of course, clearly establish what clear metrics you can use to make sure that you're following the plan. Is it a consultancy job, or is it a software engineering job, or is it a process engineering job? You could choose what specifically you would like to go and make sure these 5 principles are specifically used. Of course, and the source of this is principles.com, and you can perhaps also look at this in which way you want to go for. And yeah, that'll be great. Remember, weaknesses don't matter if you find solutions. Look at patterns of your mistakes and identify at which of the 5 steps you really make sure that you typically fail. Everyone has a last one big thing that stands in the way of success. Find yours and just deal with it because nobody else is going to deal with it. You have to deal with it and make sure that you do self-reflection, which kind of jobs and which opportunities you can apply for you can really make sure you can always overcome that. A bit of understanding, if you have learned all these three topics majorly, of course, there's a lot of content. I do not expect everybody to understand everything at the moment because there's a lot of subjective content and also a bit of experience by me and Sai, and of course, a lot of other material online. You can always refer to the slides back once we give the slide after the webinar. But hope you understood these three major topics. But if not, then we can definitely move to the Q&A session right now. And you can always, please do not unmute your microphone. And yeah, stop. Please type in your queries in the chat box. Sai will answer it at first because my throat is a bit sore. But of course, if your questions haven't been answered, please raise your hand. And also a good to remember is that opinions are a lot of plenty. Facts vary a lot, but the truth is always one. So you can always hear from us, and you can always make sure that what is the truth. Yeah, please type in your questions. We can always go forward with it.
Just looking forward for questions. I didn't get any yet.
There are some questions, I believe.
You can start from what is it?
Puneet.
Puneet, yeah.
Puneet. Yeah, Puneet. Thank you for brushing. Any suggestions for experienced candidates? I have close to 4 years experience. Okay. I think Avin is the best person to do that.
Yeah, I know Puneet very well. Of course, you can approach me later on as well. But experienced candidates in general have very good opportunities if you have a relevant job position in the market. Industries where you can translate your skills is something which you really have to focus. And if you're a mechanical engineer with a management background and you want to get into IT consulting, make sure you have a specialization or your thesis project is on that to make sure you get an entry into the market. Else, being a very core engineer, it really is a bit hard in general because, of course, you need to know the content and, of course, you need to make sure you have relevant experience. But in general, experienced candidates have very good market value, given the fact you can always negotiate your salary also. But please keep in mind that sometimes even experience can also backfire in that sometimes recruiters would not prefer experienced candidates for 2 years experience roles whereas you have 4 years experience. So looking at specific roles which suit your background, and when the job description clearly says 3 to 6 years experience or 2 to 4 years experience, I think with your 4 years experience, I think you can always answer. You can always apply. And of course, you can go through the whole process. And yeah, you have to find your niche. That's critical.
Okay, next. Nitin, do you suggest anything?
Can you shed some light on the 30% ruling?
If and how we can benefit from it? Pavitra, hi. We could answer this, but okay, I'll go through it quickly, but I think it's better that you connect with one of us later on because it's really not the focus right now. But 30% ruling is also now possible for students. Like before, there was a gap that people who are doing masters in Netherlands, they could or they could not get. But right in 2019, they made it sure. They have a new clause which says that international students who did masters in Netherlands, they can still apply for 30% ruling, because 30% ruling is for someone who enters Netherlands and applies for job in that duration. But we are actually in the Netherlands for 2 years already, so it doesn't actually include us. But now it has changed. And then if and how we can benefit from it, obviously it reduces your taxes. That's a generic way of saying it, but I can tell you the calculation if you contact us separately on this, because it's more detailed.
Yeah, that would be also a good idea. We can give you brief details. You can contact us directly once you have our contact details to the presentation.
Okay, so the next one is from Dell. to everyone. Yeah, hi Del. In the current COVID-19 scenario, with all uncertainty, will it be wise to fly back home and take the Zucker at a later point of time after graduation? Since the interviews and hiring is currently online, would it make sense to apply online for jobs from your home country? Okay, Avin, what do you think?
I believe the Zookr is something which you should apply once your residence permit expires. So if you have enrolled, let's say in 2018, and you're supposed to graduate in 2020, your residence permit will be applicable 3 to 4 months after your ideal graduation date, which is December 1. Until then, you don't need to apply for Zookr. Zookr can be always applied 2 to 3 weeks before the expiry date, and you can immediately get your Zookr. It's just a couple of weeks process. But given this nature of COVID scenario, it makes sense that you can apply a bit more earlier. Regarding your interviews and currently hiring online, I'm not sure if you can travel to India right now. So that's the first question. And even if you can, you lose the opportunity of immediately setting up interviews, face-to-face interviews for jobs, despite giving online interviews. Currently, there is a bit of a freeze in companies, and I'm not sure if you want to take the risk of going back to India, and then if you're not able to come back here and attend those interviews, it would be an issue. So,
to keep it objective, actually, we personally don't suggest going back to India and picking it up. When I say objectively, we have seen more success rate in people who've stayed here, taken the Zookr, and searched for a job and got the job. So we suggest the other way. So you must share here, though it's COVID-19, there are issues, but there are industries which will be hiring.
Okay, let's go for the next one. Is there a particular time period to apply for positions, or any time would be all right?
Good one. Okay. Usually, when you know when you are going to graduate, because usually the jobs are either immediate or they are just opened for right people, for right opportunity. Because the way we are looking for opportunities, companies also look to us as opportunities. They want to fill the gaps or fill the positions with the right people. So, but there are situations when there are projects and they would want to take immediately. But if you are clear with what kind of job you're applying, if there are immediate jobs, obviously you have to wait till 1 month till you're going to graduate. But if the positions are open, it's a huge company which invest on people, then I think a couple of months prior to your graduation is also fine. But I think in case of me and Avin, we almost were close to our graduation when we actually got some real positions coming into hand or people replying to us.
Yeah. To add to that, ideal process time is 2 to 3 months. So make sure that if you really want to get a job by a specific month, you plan a bit advanced, because jobs opportunities come here and then, and you don't know when opportunities would be there. So please always keep an outlook on LinkedIn, on various platforms. That would be the right, and you will find the right time period. The time period is usually 2 to 3 months minimum. This includes your visa, your other interviews, stages. It does not happen every week, so it takes a bit of time to even arrange those. So yeah.
Okay. The next one is Yash. The title of presentation mentions about finding job opportunities amidst COVID crisis. What recommendations can we have from this session in relation to the job scenario during COVID crisis? I'll say a single liner, and then I think Avin can give a more objective answer to you, Yash. I would say that whatever is the situation, we follow the ground rules of job application. That is what Avin has presented. So whether COVID is there or not, we actually follow the same situation. But in general, if you're looking for recommendations, I wish you good luck to check with all the businesses and industries and sectors. Keep an eye on which industry or sector is doing well and where do you align, and then you can go ahead accordingly. So
and the whole purpose of this presentation, Yash, is also to make sure that one does not waste a lot of time by doing things on not an unlean way. We have given you tools to use to make sure you use it very lean way, so you save a lot of time in doing it. And there are some tools which can help you yourself also to reflect and see why are things not working in your favor. This is something of a bit of a deep introspection. It's a bit hard. I myself also have personally faced the same because it's not that I got the job in my first interview. It took a couple of rejects and hits to really get my job as well. So I think it's a matter of time. So please use the tools which we have described. Of course, it's just a recommendation which we can give you. Of course, you can always connect us offline and think, and we can always help and guide you with our two brains working.
Yeah. The next one is from Girish. Can we make the doubt session with a conversation? Girish, if you have a question, you can switch on your mic and tell your question and get back.
Hi guys, yeah, thanks for the presentation. It was actually really informative. So quickly getting to my question, I was wondering what is the easy apply thing in the LinkedIn? Is it really useful, like to apply through the easy apply in the LinkedIn, or is it better to go to the company website and then apply normally with the motivation and the CV separately?
Avin is our LinkedIn expert. Avin, you say the answer and then I'll add the single liner later.
Yeah, the easy apply is basically for recruiters who immediately want a recruitment. So usually jobs which are very something they want to fastly fill, and you can always apply. But I believe in easy apply you have the option of uploading your CV, and you got to do it quickly. And most of the time, in my experience, easy apply jobs are not easy to get. So you have to remember that the recruiter wants a large pool of applicants, and he or she is gonna pick from that. But of course, easy apply is one way. You can always go to the job portal and also apply, whichever way. But end of the day, they receive the application. So there's no preference that they would screen only one portal and not the other portal. They will screen all the portals, which makes logic. But I think, yeah, this is my understanding. Sai, you have something to add?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. That's what happened to many of the contacts that I know about. You actually don't get to learn from easy apply whether if you get rejected, whether where to improve, what not to improve, and there is a lot of crowd attracted to easy apply. So it's based on luck there. Because that's why I said there is not a really learning curve at easy apply, but you should always do it if you have free time. It shouldn't be a problem because there are companies like Technip FMC. They are so big, but they still rely on they still use easy apply, and sometimes it works. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Girish. I think the next question is, how can you materialize your LinkedIn connections? Can you ask them to refer in their team, or it is limited only to asking their experience and learning from their profiles? I often write to them but don't get replies. What puts them down? Yeah, I believe it's again a LinkedIn thing, Sai, right? So you make sure that you have a very good picture and an updated profile, and your messages are quite professional. There are multiple ways to write very small, short messages, which can curiously do it. If you're connecting with individuals, you need to have something in common. And of course, you want to pitch that to make sure that they also gain something by connecting to you. Of course, Indians would help each other because they have not much, oh, he's an Indian, perhaps we the same community, so we obviously accept them. But if you look at other internationals or perhaps the Dutch, they are point blank that why am I going to connect with this person unless he or she is a colleague? So yeah, I think that's my best answer to this question. Perhaps you have something to add?
Yeah, I'll just add quickly. I have done it personally. Very good question. You should always know what you want to ask, or you want to cross verify if whatever you're asking is correct. Like Avin said, you should have, first thing is that you should have something in common with the person you're writing to. For instance, if you're applying for project controls, you should say, hi, I'm really impressed by your work, or something like that. If there is something shown in LinkedIn, just don't send it randomly. And then build on some process improvement you're talking about or you want to contribute to, and the other person is also actually interested in such a process improvement. So this is an example I can give. How do we align with people and they get interested in you? So
yeah. Well, also you can always get back to us if you have more, if you want more clarity on that. So yeah.
The next one, few companies have withdrawn job positions or have slowed down hiring due to COVID. Is it wise to take search visa immediately after graduation if we don't have a job already? I think we already answered this, Avin, right?
Yes, you will have 3 to 4 months after your graduation, ideal graduation date, until December 1. So you don't need to apply for Zookya then. So once your RP expires, please apply for Zookya. So before your RP expires, please apply for your Zookya. That's quite critical.
Okay, we have something from Maria. I have a question for ISA. Okay, it's a general question, I guess. So since many of us are already on the Zookya and have recently lost our jobs or are finding it very difficult to find a job due to hiring pause at companies, there is now a petition to the IND and Dutch government to extend this visa. Has the ISA also been involved in this? Can they bring this to the notice of the university as well? Okay.
Perhaps if Vivek is online, he could briefly reply to this question.
Yeah, because we can get on to other people who are.
Yeah. What I'd like to say is here we are not involved in the petition to the IND. However, we have written a letter to the embassy asking their support in escalating this matter to the IND. To the university also, we have written the letter, but not specifically for this issue. But it is definitely a part of the set of issues we've already presented to them. But for the embassy, this issue about the Zookya has gone specifically. Means there is a dedicated letter for this, and the embassy also has replied that they will escalate to the relevant authorities. As soon as we have any kind of an update from them, we'll put it on our social media. We'll let you know.
Okay, thanks for the compliments. Any advice for entry-level engineers while applying for graduate traineeship or entry-level traineeship opportunities? Is it better to work on an internship after graduation while also applying for traineeships to improve chances of employment? The last question, I think, is yes. But for the traineeships, I think Netherlands offers all of the multinational companies offer fantastic traineeships. These are really good because they give you a fundamental base on various skills required. It also gives you an opportunity to understand what kind of function you would like to work in a big organization. I believe it's the advice you would get in general is to make sure your CV and motivation letter is quite good, like we had explained earlier. And of course, use the tool which we gave you so that on a weekly basis, you scrutinize what are the companies you would like to make sure you get and not randomly apply just for all the traineeships. You need to do your homework before you apply because they expect you to do it. And I think all the traineeships require a motivation letter. And I think that's critical. Why this job, why this company, and why you. Yeah. So perhaps Sai has something to add to this.
Yeah, I'll refer it back to slide where you have the car model, which Avin had presented. I had talked to a few graduate traineeships before. And what I learned from them was really car model helps you a lot because you try to understand how to solve an issue, but also tell what is the result out of it. So you try to quantify it. So I don't want to elaborate more, but using car model in CVs is really, really a must when you are applying for position like traineeship. It sounds like it is a starting position, but they expect a lot for graduate traineeships. They should have understanding of business, and also you should excel in whatever engineering or whatever background you're coming from. So car model, and for this, while during interviews, star, please go for that. That's the advice we can give from the material we have.
Yeah.
Next. Do you want me to read, Avin?
Yeah.
Okay, Bibin, it's a little, okay. Would the approach change for creative professions? Mostly in which case the recruitment side has very less knowledge of the domain. Avin, you should go for this.
It makes sense to change or adapt to your requirement because there's no set way to do it. What we have seen as such with multiple candidates and also my knowledge base, we have developed this approach. For creative professions, you usually have a portfolio or perhaps something which you can always portray through your website and blogs. Of course, LinkedIn is a great platform to even publish your material because after all, it's your work. On the recruitment side, if the person has very less knowledge of the domain, either you're representing your content wrongly to them, because usually recruiters will have domain knowledge in general, especially the hiring manager. But for the HR perspective, they look for keywords, and of course to make sure that you abide by what the job description goes by. And if it is related as a neutral person, I don't think any reason as to why they would not see, oh, this is a good CV for an interview. And of course, apart from that, once you go to interview, it's your game. So I think that's my. But perhaps if you don't understand, perhaps you can ask the question again by unmuting your microphone. Then perhaps I can.
Bipin is there? I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, Bipin.
I mean, it's kind of almost like Avin said. I was just a bit doubtful about like, yeah, when companies actually use external recruiters, like large MNCs, like I've seen like when there's an external recruiter involved, they don't have much knowledge of like especially the design domain in which I come from. Yeah. So in that case, okay, if the application, as you said, the portfolio goes towards the hiring manager in the company, it makes sense. But it's kind of like if there's a bunch of applicants, like 100 applicants in the first stage, I'm guessing it doesn't reach the hiring manager. There's a first stage of process. Yeah. I'm just curious about like how do you jump that cut?
Yeah, the good strategy would be to make sure that you write your card, your accomplishments, your projects, internships on a bit of an abstract level, so that they can relate to it. So one level higher. This is a good strategy if you're translating your skills to multiple people, multiple industries, multiple sectors. I know your profile, and in general, if you were to look for multiple domains, your industries and sectors, there could be multiple as an IPD.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think you should go a bit on a higher abstract level rather than going nichely specifically. They would not understand or relate, and it's a kind of a turn off for them. So going a bit higher level would really help a lot.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, right.
Samir, you have a question. What are the alternatives for a full-time job until you get hired? Due to financial constraints and the high cost of living in Netherlands, what do you suggest in this regard? Anything you have, Sai, perhaps?
Yeah, there are two things. Those are internships, but like you said, it's a good thing to add on your CV. Keep working towards and sharpening your skills and adding more onto your CV. But if you ask me, how does that help in the cost of living? Not really much. And there is something called work student, which is more like you're an employee, but you do only few hours, so you're paid at the same rate as a normal employee, but you do less number of hours per week. So that gives money, but also gives you the same experience as a full-time employee.
And also, startups usually require part-time jobs. They have part-time jobs where you can work 2 to 3 days, and that usually would pay off at least 900 euros to 1,000 euros per month, which can definitely cover your living expense. I know a couple of people who are in the Zukia do the same because they're not able to find the right job, but they are going forward with this strategy. So perhaps you can explore all opportunities and avenues, which make sure that you can use Zukia to the best. Okay, so next question. Do your grades matter in getting an internship? And does failing some courses affect the process in any way? I think this is again a personal opinion. Of course, you can portray your grades as much as you want in your CV. And if you don't want to also portray, they don't get much details into it. They don't ask you to give your transcripts. But certain internships, such as organizations like TNO or other heavy research organizations where even the nature of the internship is research and academically focused, there they may ask you to disclose your transcripts. And if, of course, you don't have the subjects in your transcripts, then they'll ask you how can you apply or work in the specific nature of job. But in general, for internships, multinational companies in general, for profit, do not look at grades per se. But it is always good to get good grades because it's highly important to have subject knowledge. And I don't think there is any issue with TU Delft's education system when compared to Indian education systems in general. But of course, please make sure that you have good grades as much as you can. Of course, it does not stop you from applying. Please apply, and you can also get your internship, and also you can simultaneously clear your courses. But yeah, please make sure that your grades are good enough to make sure you're confident in your interviews. And of course, you can always probably understand. Perhaps you have something else, Sai.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Grades. I mean, grades are important. You should be motivated to get good grades, do your courses well, but that should never demotivate you in getting an internship or in this process.
Yeah, I believe recruiters will not specifically look to get your grades as such, apart from internships, which are very academic focused.
Yep.
Any different advice focused on internships in particular? I think personal referrals also could happen. One way I know a couple of them people and also myself, we connected with HR recruiters on the Delft Bedrijvendagen event, which is the Delft Business Days event, which happens annually. And if you have a HR recruiter there who's pitching and you make a very good impression, and they happen to have a position or upcoming position, then your luck is there. So one way would be to get those kind of opportunities. Sometimes even cold mail happens. For example, I cold mailed Tata Steel in Europe for a summer internship, and the HR apparently forwarded it to a hiring manager, and they had not made a position, but of course they gave me a position, and they created a position just for 2 months on a consulting basis. In that way, I also could grab. So, like I mentioned earlier, network every single opportunity you can get because there is no said way to do. Only guiding principles apply. But perhaps you have something, please.
Yeah, it is a bit personal, but the objective part is covered already. But the personal part is that it is highly possible that you are connected to alumnus or seniors who are working in processes or projects similar to your understanding or your skill set. They can always talk. You can always talk to them and ask them to put them in touch with the hiring manager of their department, have a coffee with them, go to their company, visit them, and they're on their foot. So that's possible.
Yeah, thanks, Sai.
Yeah.
Is it a safe gamble to negotiate for a little more salary if you have about 2 years of work experience or otherwise? Sure. If you do have relevant experience, I highly suggest you to ask for, but ask nicely. It's always that HR recruiters in general are the medium between the hiring manager and you. So they negotiate between yourselves and they would say this is it. But you can kindly ask that if you have a contrasting offer from a different company, you can always say, claim that this company in general is providing me, or I have seen through Glassdoor that for this specific position, this is the market value. And I believe this will be nice. So if you say nicely and do not pull a fight, I think you can always show a negotiation behavior. Unless today you have an extremely good profile, you're a cum laude, you're an honors program student, you have an Olympic medal, and then you can brag. I think I would kindly suggest you to take it a bit slow with the recruiter when you get an offer and take a couple of days to think what would be an optimum gross salary. I negotiated myself with the salary with Philips because they saw my work experience and my profile, and I got what I wanted. So you should also think about if the company can pay. So Philips in general has a very good balance sheet and profit and loss. So the margins are very high. If you're in a sector which is ridden by public sector where money is not flowing that much, for example, if you're working in the construction sector where projects are government aided, usually it's a bit hard because they can't afford to give so much salary increase. It also depends in small and medium scale industries. Small and medium scale firms have a fixed budget and they cannot go above that because it won't be fair for other employees to get you to get more than the other employees who've been there for long. So there are multiple options. Negotiation of salaries is a bit of a hard topic, but you can always align back to us if you have any questions on that. But perhaps do you have something to add in this specific experience?
No, this is not my domain of experience. So yeah.
All right, no issues. Yeah. Balaji, I wish to ask whether the presentation, especially the car model, will be available to all who attend the presentation. Yes, you will find the presentation in your inbox, or if possible, recorded presentation. Yeah, I believe recorded presentation possibly could be uploaded in the YouTube.
Yeah, I've answered that question, Avin.
Okay.
In the chat box.
Oh, yeah, thank you. What if I don't have relevant experience to what I'm applying for? How can I market myself? For instance, I worked as a site engineer, but I'm applying for asset management. Also, this question is related to more of an internship than a job search. So I haven't done my thesis related to asset management. Okay. Perhaps Sai could answer this.
Yeah.
Given your domain.
Usually in such cases, you have to focus on what your course has provided you. In general, the latest, whatever we study in TU Delft is actually latest in the market. For example, if you are interested in asset management and you have relevant studies or courses done in TU Delft related to that, you must write a motivation letter and also write CV based on car, how you did your assignments or your case studies, interesting case studies, and write your motivation letter as well, why you're interested in asset management, how does it go, and what like why do you want to move into asset management, and your proposal, how do you want to develop any certain process that is available in that company that you want to change, or you want to bring something from literature to practicality. So that's how I look at it. Avin, if you want to add, you can add.
No, it's pretty clear what you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very important in terms of the topic here is mentioned.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay, the next one is Anuj. Does it help to have a Dutch version of CV? Oh.
I don't think so.
No.
Anuj, I would highly recommend that you have an English CV unless you are quite Dutch proficient, which I think from the name I judge you're an Indian person. Perhaps you have high Dutch proficiency, I don't know. But if you don't have, please make sure that your CV is in English. Of course, you can showcase your proficiency in A1 or A2 or B1 in your Dutch language. But apart from that, it is not recommended to do a Dutch CV just like how German students apply for their jobs with German CVs. So if you do with a Dutch CV, you have to be really proficient because the Dutch people are quite direct, and if they see a Dutch CV, they'll start speaking in Dutch. And if you can't speak Dutch, then that's a showstopper there. So yeah.
That's it, I think.
Can I have a small additional question? Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Girish, yes.
Yeah. I was also wondering if we apply currently, we are still a student, and there is a question in the application asking like, are you eligible to work here in Netherlands? So with the resident permit, what should be the answer for that question? I was wondering because I don't have a Zook here yet. So that's a pretty confusing question. Like, are you eligible to work in Netherlands with the proper thing? There's like,
yeah. Get it. I'm just checking if Avin wants to answer it, or should I go ahead?
Okay. Yeah, I think if you have a Zookya at the moment, or you think you can get a Zookya by the time they would recruit you, you can say yes, because end of the day they don't need to apply for a work permit.
Okay.
You can also call up the HR recruiter to get it clarified and say, end of the day, you're not bypassing a system. So you can call them up and you can ask them. Highly skilled migrant visas are usually given for expats. But apart from that, if you're a EU, then that would be yes again, but you're not. So please check with the recruiter. You can just directly call them up and ask them because it's better to say, you can always give, you don't need to give false information.
Yeah,
but Sai, you have something?
Yeah, I have something. Yeah, okay. Avin has given the best answer to you already.
Okay.
That you have to contact them to know about it. Or actually, if you contact one HR about this question, you will actually get a general answer to it already. So
Yeah, I think that's also okay.
but my gut feeling is actually we are eligible to work. But yeah, I can say that though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should help. Yeah. And one more small question about the.
Yeah.
It's not maybe a question. I got maybe a suggestion from the other career fair event which I kind of went through TU Delft. They also mentioned it would be nice if you also get a permission to have a one-day visit at the company just to have a look at their company, their working culture. So is it good to mention in the motivation or something like that to have a one-day visit at the company? What's your take on that? And is it recommended, first of all? I was not sure about that.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't understand the question. Perhaps
They mentioned that it's also nice to have, an option of one-day visit of the company, like maybe to get a permission or ask them, is it possible to have one-day visit and get to know the company, like a one-day work visit or like a work life at the company? So is it good to ask, about it, or is it?
no, I don't think it's a good idea, because unless they do have an in-house day, they have something planned like that.
Okay.
But apart from that, I don't think nobody's going to give you a tour unless I wouldn't give myself, because I have my own day-to-day job to do, not as the HR. But who knows? You have your specific niche, and you are able to convince a person that you're able to contribute to the company in some way or the other. If I had a peep look,
Okay.
nobody's going to stop you in doing that. But be advised that it is a bit of a risky thing.
Yeah.
It can backfire,
Yeah.
but nobody's stopping you.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I think the presentation was really great. The content-wise and the presentation both were really great and
Thank
got a
you.
lot of insights. Yeah.
Thanks to me and Sai. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any
That's
other
it.
questions?
We're winding up.
Yeah, I think we are done with all the questions. Just one request to all of you is please fill the feedback form that you get, because that will help us improve our upcoming events. So I think Avin, it's
Yes.
yours, and you can
Yes.
wind up the event.
Yes, thank you very much, all. I hope this has been very helpful, and we took a bit of effort on a 1 week preparation to do this. And I hope each of you are safe, motivated now to look at what you can do for finding your right opportunity, be it an internship or be it a job. We will send you this presentation via email, like earlier mentioned. And also, of course, you can always approach us through our contact IDs. In the presentation, you will find our contact IDs, and you can mail us, and we can always personally follow up with you if you have any specific questions. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Nice.
Thank you all.